Thank you. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, actually. So, I'm coming from Saule Technologies. We are situated in Poland. We are a startup company with the aim of commercializing the technology that Florian just gave a very nice introduction to. And I would like to apologize in advance if I will repeat some of the things that he was saying, as, let's say, this topic is very similar to what I'm going to talk about. Nevertheless, I think I will try to put it into maybe a bit more business perspective. So I don't know how many of you are really familiar with solar cells here, but I thought it would be interesting as a first start to put it into the context and talk about what is actually a good solar cell and why perovskites fit into this field so well. So basically, when we are targeting the aim of preventing climate change, and we are really into using a photovoltaic technology that will be able to provide us with energy on a gigawatt scale, then we are looking for materials that have, let's say, some special features that will enable them to be harnessed on a very large scale industrial level so that it can be really utilized as an efficient photovoltaic technology. So one key aspect is that we need a material that has a good absorption, which will obviously benefit to absorb light and to do so in a very thin layer. We also want this material to have good transport. So once the light is in this semiconductor, it generates the carriers, and then you want these carriers to be able to leave the photoactive layer of the solar cell and generate useful electrical current. We also want to have abundant materials. So this is something that obviously when you're thinking about technology on a large scale, you want to have materials that are actually very cheap. It's available, and it's also cheap to process. Besides that, we want to have the possibility to be able to process it easily. So we obviously, if we can find a material that is as easy to process as just to inkjet print, then it's very nice, then we can talk about a very scalable technology. And obviously, if the material can provide us with additional extra features, there's very good low light performance, or the possibility to create flexible solar cells, or it has very lightweight, or you can customize the design, like all these features, it will enable us to create a very good solar cell. And actually, what I want to highlight here is that currently there is a crystalline silicon, as Florian mentioned, is the technology that dominates the market. It's over 90% market share, and that is actually not a very good absorber. It has, let's say it's a very abundant material, but it's also very energy efficient but energy intensive to create crystalline silicon ingots. So it's, let's say, not a very good solar cell. But if you look at it, especially in the recent years, like crystalline silicon has like very, very large part of the market share, and it even has a negative effect on other commercially established thin film technologies. So this is basically due to the fact that now we have very, very cheap crystalline silicon coming from China, which is basically oversupply, and this field is not really operating with a huge margin. And this basically means that right now it's, let's say, not a very lucky situation to be a startup company trying to go into the market and change the world. So just to overview PV technologies at a blink, so basically we have, let's say, three generations. We have first generation PV, where crystalline silicon falls in with the largest market share. So here we are talking about solar cells that are deposited on wafers or used using wafers. They are typically rather thick, like obviously thickness is in this case very broad to understand, but let's say crystalline silicon has an average industrial standard of using let's say 100 micron, 160 micron substrates. Then, and this is mainly due to the fact that crystalline silicon is not a very good absorber. And because of this, scientists are working since quite a long time to find materials with much better absorption properties. And this is how these so-called conventional thin film technologies were established. So currently, the two greatest, let's say, players are cadmium telluride and CIGS solar cells, as well as maybe some sort of amorphous silicon solar cells are there that you can buy. And then there's emerging thin film PV, and there has been, let's say, some trials to commercialize dye-sensitized solar cells. Also, as we mentioned before, like OPV, organic photovoltaics, is there. Like there are a couple of companies that are at the brink of putting some sort of larger volume into the market. And then there is perovskite, which is the material that we are dealing with. And this is, as exactly Florian mentioned, it's a slide that I think it's completely not transparent, so I just wanted to help you and extract some of the data points just to highlight what is the situation. So we have crystalline silicon, which over, let's say, half a century managed to reach the current maximum certified efficiency, which is actually, I think, now 26.7. Sorry for not bringing updated data. And there's cadmium telluride and CIGS. Like these are the two largest commercially available thin film technologies, and they are respectively at 22.1 and 22.9% efficiency in a laboratory scale. And then there's this wonderful material called perovskite, which has been first reported in a solar cell architecture less than 10 years ago. And in this 1 decade, it already managed to outperform the two commercially established thin film technologies and is starting to compete with crystalline silicon. Now, obviously, this is in laboratory scale, and this is why this technology is very, very interesting to push and try to bring this to the market. So this is also going to be something familiar. What are perovskites? I'm not going to go really much in detail, but basically there are multiple perovskite systems. It's basically a crystalline structure with the different ions on the lattice points. And we are dealing with this so-called organic, inorganic halide materials. And as I mentioned before, this material has a couple of unique features, and I just want to highlight them a bit to put it into context why they are so interesting. So they have a very, very high absorption coefficient. So as compared to an indirect band gap of the crystalline silicon materials, this thin film technology, and especially in case of halide perovskites, they have a direct band gap with a very, very strong absorption properties. So this is also combined with the fact that they have a close to optimal band gap. So this means that for solar energy harvesting, there's an optimal band gap value which this semiconductor needs to have. This is defined by the Shockley-Quasi limit, which limits what is the efficiency of a single junction solar cell. And this metal ammonium lead iodide, which is, let's say, an archetypical perovskite material, it has very good values for this, and it also has very strong absorption. If you compare it with, for example, crystalline silicon, you see that we have like orders of magnitude higher absorption properties, and it also outperforms the other main photovoltaic technologies. Besides that, it also has very good properties in terms of low amount of non-radiative losses. So if you compare the different technologies that are available, so I'm highlighting here, basically this is perovskite material and these are perovskite materials, and the red area shows what are the losses that are there in the material with a non-radiative. So basically you have gallium arsenide, which is very high quality semiconductor. It also shows low losses. However, this is a very, let's say, expensive technology, usually created by epitaxial growth. If you compare crystalline silicon, CIGS, or cadmium telluride with the record reported in perovskite materials, these has lower losses already, and there's obviously, let's say, a lot of space to improve this material. So all these features together lead to the fact that we have a very high performance in the material, and because it's very, very thin, it's also possible to create very high specific power for the solar cell. So this specific power basically describes what is the power per weight ratio of the solar cell. And due to the fact that in this ultra-thin perovskite materials, we are working with photoactive layers, a few hundred nanometers compared to hundreds of microns in crystalline silicon, this allows us to generate orders of magnitude higher power per weight. So this can be a special interest when you're considering space applications or aviation, where it's very important what is the weight that you have to actually send up into the air. So I would like to briefly discuss like why Saule Technologies has decided to go for inkjet printing. As I described before, this material has a lot of interesting properties, and with inkjet printing, we believe that we can unlock all these features and create a product that will be very, very versatile, and this will allow us, hopefully, to successfully enter the market with an interesting product. So we are basically using, I don't think I really have to go into details how an inkjet printer works, but there's a couple of features that I would like to highlight. So as opposed to most of the research reported on photovoltaics like perovskite PV, the solar cells are deposited in inert atmosphere in some sort of glove box. We are using ambient processing. And this, combined with the fact that the inkjet printing allows very low material wastage, we believe that this will allow us to have a low operating expenditures. As well as compared to other methods that are used for photovoltaic technologies, like usually vacuum chambers and evaporated materials, we are using solution processing. And the equipment that is required for this also is much cheaper. Combined with the versatility that is allowed by inkjet printing to customize the design, this is some feature that actually a lot of people tend to underestimate what is the value in the custom design of a solar cell, and the fact that we can use different substrate and we have a completely digital production, we believe that this is a very, very versatile product. Now, when we are talking about printing a functional material, especially when we are talking about perovskite, this is actually a very, very tricky material. Thing is that you're dissolving this material as simple as a couple of precursors in an organic solvent. However, these tends to evolve over the time and form some sort of clusters in a solution, and it's not really going to be a pure solution. So this makes it, let's say, somewhat challenging to create an optimal formulation for inkjetting. Nevertheless, we have been working quite a lot on it, and actually two of my very good engineering colleagues are here in the audience, and they will be able to probably address questions related to this topic. But they managed to optimize the process to enable us to create very uniform layers. So just to highlight how did it look in the beginning, it's like one of the first perovskite layers that we deposited, as Gloria mentioned, is not really something that you can use in photovoltaic applications. However, over the time, by optimizing the parameters, we were able to get to a very, very smooth, homogeneous, and uniform film that could be used in photovoltaic applications. So what I mentioned so far, it leads to the fact that we are able to create solar cells that are very, very versatile. They are flexible. They have low light, like good low light performance. It's very thin. We can make them semi-transparent. They're also lightweight. We can customize the colors. So all these things enable us to have a very, very broad possible field of applications. I just want to show you how it looks like. Perhaps some of you are familiar with this sort of machine that is running on a picture. This is how we are printing the photoactive material. And it's some sort of a transparent or like very, very slightly colored precursor solution that under the post-treatment, it basically changes to this polycrystalline photoactive material. And it's pretty fast compared to other let's say, deposition methods. So where we are right now, we are, I would assume, around the TRL of 6. We've demonstrated let's say, the proof of concept. And our next step is to create a production line and to be able to bring this product from the laboratory to the market. So in case any of you happens to be an investor with a lot of money, please feel free to visit me at our booth. And also, we are very interested to discuss about what sort of equipments and what sort of processing methods you might be able to recommend, and we are very open for discussions. So our target is to reach up to 1 square meter solar modules. Currently, this is a size of an A4 sheet, and these are the hands of this guy sitting over there on the picture. So with this, we believe that there's a lot of market opportunities that we can address. And if we generally talking about photovoltaic markets, there's like a constant growth. However, this is mainly because of crystalline silicon, but we believe that if there's growth in silicon market, it's obviously beneficial for all sort of photovoltaic applications. But in particular, what we are targeting, our idea is to not to have to compete with crystalline silicon. So we want to use this material in areas where crystalline silicon is not very, very efficient. So it's typical when you need either like high power density or low light performance or custom design. So all these, let's say, initially niche features. One of the first, let's say, target market that we expect to be able to reach is building integrated photovoltaics, but there are plenty of other applications, starting from portable electronics, Internet of Things, integration with wearables, furniture, acoustic screen, windows, even space applications, and we have a collaboration here with the Japanese Space Agency. So actually, there's really, really broad field of applications, and we have this B2B approach, so we are looking for end customers that help us to integrate our product into theirs. Just to talk a bit about BIPV, why is it so interesting? So the energy generation in cities is basically where you need it the most, but when you talk about rooftop crystalline silicon applications, the taller the buildings are growing, the less surface you will have compared to the entire building available. So this means that these rooftop applications will not be really able to provide the energy directly. However, if you would be able to harness the surfaces, it would be a completely different story. And this is exactly what we are trying to do, to create a product that integrates our energy generating foil into building elements. And this will also help us to offset some of the costs that are associated with the installation. So this, we think, is going to be a very great possibility. We also have an idea about the integration with the electric vehicles. Obviously, here we will not generate enough energy to run the car as it is. However, we can prolong the battery lifetime, or we can spare the battery from running if you are situated on a same location and you can run the air conditioning. And if by any chance your child happens to be locked up in the car, you don't have to be worried that there's going to be something bad happening to him. And additional advantage in this case is that because we can customize the shape, the design, we can make it flexible, we have much larger area that we can utilize, as well as the flexible solar cells will have less impact when you're driving on very low quality roads that will make your car shake. So we will not probably suffer that much mechanical damage from this. And we actually have already signed some of like license agreements. One is with Skanska, so this is a construction company giant, and with them we are collaborating with integrating our solar modules into these facades and buildings. And so this is something that they already have paid for, and they will have exclusive license in certain countries. So we are, let's say, building the market in this situation. And we have another collaboration with Ergis Group. So this is a large Polish company, mainly focusing on packaging. And we are developing together an ultra-high barrier material which will enable the longevity of the solar cells. As mentioned before, they are sensitive to water, moisture, oxygen, and this will be able to prolong the lifetime and do it so in a very low cost. So I just want to quickly introduce the company to you before I finish my talk. So we have a management team. We have Olga Melinkiewicz is the CTO and the founder of the company, working on technology, and she's mainly responsible for upscaling the technology. And she established the company together with two very, very already successful businessmen from Poland, Piotr Klich and Artur Kupčunas, who are taking care about the, let's say, the business of the company to have it running. So we have a very, very interdisciplinary and international team. We have 35 team members coming from 14 different countries. I would say it's quite impressive for a startup situated in Poland. And they are also very successful in scientific publications. We have over 200 coming from the authors that are working in our company. So this is just a map that highlights that we are not only international, but intercontinental. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to thank for our partners who provide us with funding and whatever support. Thank you.